So just giving a few examples of the different alternatives, I'll start with a physical alternative. And this is going to be a dialog that's going to hold all of the physical alternatives for every element in your network, whether that be a conduit, a channel, a gutter, a catch basin, and so forth. So they're separated into different tabs because we have a unique set of properties for each element type, but it's within this physical alternative that you can specify different physical attributes that you want to run in a scenario. For instance, you may want to see what happens if you size your pipes differently and then rerun that scenario. Maybe it's something like a material change or a different shape. So maybe I want to do an arch pipe instead of a circular, or a metal pipe instead of concrete, and then run those calculations and see how those different changes are going to affect the results. You also have a base design alternative. So in a previous video I did describe what the default design constraints and how they are used. And this alternative is going to point directly to those default design constraints. Up at the top, I'm going to have what I would consider the global design constraints that are going to apply to all of the pipes, nodes, and inlets in the network, whereas the bottom section is going to allow me to individually set different design constraints for the individual elements. So I could toggle off some of my conduits not to design, or maybe lock in and invert at the start or the stop, or if I have special local pipe constraints that I want for individual conduits, then I could go in and type those in here per line, and you're going to be able to do the same thing for the nodes as well as the inlets. I'll give one last example of an alternative looking at a rainfall alternative. You're going to be creating a separate rainfall alternative for every region and design storm that you want to run a calculation for. So you'll create the alternative, and then you'll go set what that storm event is going to be, as well as any additional information like a climate adjustment. And then these individual alternatives can be grouped together inside of a scenario to run that what-if condition. Inside of the help for subsurface utilities, there is a good article on what an alternative is, and then we have links that if you want additional information on specific alternatives, you can click on those. Right, now that brings me to the calculation options. So within one scenario, you're going to have one calculation option specified. And if we take a look at the calculation option, it's going to be a very long list of properties that control how to solve the hydraulics and hydrology of the drainage system. In a later video, I'm going to dive in deeper on these individual properties that need to be set for the different calculation options. But the main two things that are going to be considered here are going to be the calculation type, and that's going to say whether or not we are analyzing or designing the network. If we're analyzing, then it's only going to run the calculations and not going to change any physical properties of the network, whereas if we're running a design, you are going to see the physical properties of the network change. So that would be resizing the pipes or changing the invert elevations of the pipes from structures. The other important property here is going to be which numerical solver we're using. If we're using StormCAD, then we're only going to be seeing the rational method inside of this drop-down list. But if we toggle on Civil Storm and activate that license, then you're also going to see some additional solvers where you can run unsteady state analysis.